streaming now. Hello and welcome. This is Becky with Malvern Books, and we're thrilled today to be hosting the Chapbook Prize Awards from the Kallisto Gaia Press. And so Tony will be the head of the press, will be MC today. So I just wanted to go ahead and say welcome everyone. We are live streaming the event. And so if you're participating and you want to be absolutely sure that you don't have your video up here, you can go ahead and turn off your video. But other than that, we'll be live streaming and highlighting those people that are reading. And so I'm going to turn this over to Tony, and we're thrilled to get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. We're glad to be here. We have two outstanding poets. The winner and the runner-up for the Saguaro Poetry Prize, which is an annual prize we give for exciting books of contemporary poetry. And I would like to introduce the two poets. The runner-up was Renee Rossi. She's published the full-length poetry collection Triage, two chapbooks, Third Worlds, and Still Life. Still Life was a winner of the Gertrude Press Poetry Prize. Her poems have appeared in Comstock Review, Southwest American Literature, Journal of American Medical Humanities, and Best of the Net anthologies. She's an otolaryngologist, ear, nose, and throat surgeon for many years, and she recently completed a master's degree in Ayurveda and teaches integrative medicine courses. She's a native of Detroit, but she currently divides her time between the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont and other places that she finds compelling. So let's welcome Renee. I wish we could have a big clap, but anyway. The winner of the Saguaro Poetry Prize is KB. KB is from Stop 6, Fort Worth, Texas. They are a Black queer poet, essayist, educator, cultural worker, and lover of most plants and people. They have words published in Cincinnati Review, The Offing, ANMLY, and other pretty places. Their chapbook, How to Identify Yourself with a Wound, won the Saguaro Poetry Prize. That's why we're here. It was written with support from workshops with Lambda Literary, The Surreal Life, The Watering Hole, the Hurston Wright Foundation, the Speakeasy Project, and Winter Tangerine. They are currently a PEN America Emerging Writers Fellow and an African American Leadership Institute Austin Fellow. Their cultural work spans 6 years. In that time, they've helped found 2 nonprofits, Interfaces and Embrace Austin, and they have contributed to projects such as Austin's first LGBTQIA plus quality of life survey, a community benefited zine on this, a community benefited zine on the carceral system, and advocacy for inclusion of chosen names on UT Austin's diplomas, among others. Currently, they are a student in the University of Texas at Austin's Masters in Social Work program and project lead on Winter Storm Project, an arts anthology inspired by 2021 Texas Winter Storm. And I would like to ask Renee to begin by reading a couple of her poems, and I will turn off my video so you don't hear my dogs.
Oh, it's shut the door.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, welcome everyone, and thanks for coming. It's nice to see all your faces. Can everyone hear me? Yes, okay. Let me turn my volume up a bit. So I am really pleased to be here and pleased to read from my chapbook. So without any further ado, thank you so much, Tony, for the introduction. I'm going to read my first poem from the chapbook, and it's titled, Sometimes a Woman Stands Up. And the epigraph is from Rilke, from a poem by Rilke, which is, sometimes a man stands up during supper and walks outdoors and keeps on walking. So the title of this poem is Sometimes a Woman Stands Up. Her arms must be pale. Mid-supper, a woman removes a glass from the shelf and breaks it on the floor. She takes off her apron. It may be a gown. No longer a mother. Finger pads rubbed raw. She puts on her coat and touches the door. There might be a late autumn wind whipping outside, thrashing what few dead leaves hold steadfast to swaying limbs, for it is dark and still, no stars. But she's waited long enough and can see stars in daylight. She's given everything: blood, milk, muscle, sinew, bone. The lake laps at her feet, wanting to take more of her shoreline. Maybe her toes have never felt floorboard this way. She knows of the 6 tastes. Salt is the only one a human cannot live without, and how it dissolves in a boiling pot, how it concentrates in tears, how tears carry crystals of the mind's sorrow and fear. There is an herb called the shok that takes away a woman's sorrow. Its red bark given to a woman after loss of a child, husband, or a dream. It helps bind that empty space in the womb, that wide open space in a Rousseau painting, where a young maiden touches a green leaf, thinks of a lover and the silent kingdom. And a lioness stares back at her. What she's never held, she does not know how to let go of. And there may be a temple somewhere with a priestess swinging a censer, the smoke coasting along the flight path of swallows. It reaches her. So this next one is titled Underwater Bees. Underwater bees. That was before the seed cracked open, before the water broke, before grackles lined up on stoplight wires, when minnows swarmed like underwater bees, before you and I were born or imagined embryos from thousands of immature eggs lodged inside us, before we knew the 18 ways to make a baby, hollow balls of cells, everything a woman will ever have, there at birth and dwindling, like hairs that wrap themselves into nests in the drain. And fried eggs, eggs over easy, and egg whites, prom dresses with taffeta linings, the white silk christening outfit, and baby toes. And planning and devising. There must be harmless ways to feed an idea. So we're reading about 5 to 7 minutes. So maybe
Yes.
one more poem in
Sure.
this segment? Okay. So we'll talk about it in a bit, but this next poem is titled Self-Portrait of a Birth from a Handheld Mirror, kind of modeled after the Ashbery poem, his self-portrait poem. So again, this is titled Self-Portrait of a Birth from Handheld Mirror. And there is some medical terminology in here, but just go with the sounds. The last time you will ever be judged is a fruit, cervix ripe as a pomegranate, bursting fine conjunctival vessels, petechial hemorrhages budding the afterbirth of sutures through a torn perineum, the crowning moment, a child, trailing umbilical cord a right and wrong way, the absolute mocking him from a Where's Waldo roadmap into the future, little dabs of silver nitrate swabbed over his eyes. It will be nothing to love him so much you can't give answers when he later sees a missed abortion in your medical book, the bones of a fetal skeleton entombed in a mother's womb. Why do they call it a seed, he'll ask, when seeds grow into plants? Why are there maggots under the compost lid, the same ones that crawl on an amputee's stump after you've unwrapped the dirty bandage? But you won't tell him this, or why the neighbor asks you to bury the dead hummingbird that's thrown its body against her picture window, because you're used to death. You've cross-clamped arteries and veins leading in and out of that place that connects the two of you. Your little prayer book of childhood opens to the acts of contrition, where a fetal heart beats in a jar of formaldehyde. You touch his soft fontanelle. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. That's a very dramatic poem. And that's going to lead me to some questions here in a minute. But first, I would like to hear some poems from KB. So let's bring him up. KB, are you there? There he is.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Thank y'all for being here today. I really, really appreciate all friends and folks from other walks of life that have come out. Also happy to be here with Renee and appreciate Kallisto Gaia Press for publishing this book, which I'm gonna read from a little bit and then we'll get into a little Q&A. Greetings from Fort Worth, Texas. I want to love this city. The street I grew up on where 3 men brown as church pews roll in dirt as cops suffocate their wistful wrists. Dogs sniffing through the newly built house that's since been boarded up. The corner store where Ramey and Stallcup meet. Where I first smoked weed with a young boy in orange shoes who now rocks an orange jumpsuit. The brown sauce smothered pork chops and stormy Mondays that fill your tummy till you feel a kind of heaven. I want the city to be loved for downtown and Eastwood equally. When I went to university up the street, they told me not to drive past the train tracks because it's sketchy over there. Like being thrust into whiteness isn't sketchy enough. Like wax dripping candles at vigils aren't just as pretty as the Christmas parade of lights on 7th Street. I hate to love this city. Where the stop sign on Berry has 6 painted under stop so you know what hood it is. Where I first felt love, like true, true love, breathing on the side of my neck on the littest of school nights from a boy who these days pushes daisies. Damn, I love this city. If you lay on the wood in Rusted Nail where Southside and the burbs meet long enough, you'll hear church ladies humming. Thank y'all. All right. 2 truths and a lie. Let's do that poem. 1. I love my mother the way I love cacti, very intensely and from a distance. 2. When I was younger, I said, I love you to her just to get something that resembles a reaction. 3. At night, the crickets speaking through the creak in my window resemble the crickets in my childhood home the night I hushed my welts to sleep. 1. I love my liquor the way I love my mother in a way that feels good and unhealthy for me. 2. In 2012, I puked in a trash can with no bag and holes at the bottom. I can't help but think that was a metaphor for the year. 3. In 2012, something in me died along with my willingness to be a mother. 1. I love my men the way I love my liquor, only appropriately past 10 p.m. 2. I never knew I could consent to pain. 3. When he hit, I meant to ask for less, but it seemed like he liked it enough to let me hide. 1. I need a lie to get me through this poem. 2. I need something that doesn't tie me to the person I once was. 3. I love my mother the way I love memories, in a way that lies to me sometimes, but still the memories. Thank you. And I will do one more, and then we will get into some stuff. Let's go with how to identify yourself with a wound. So context for this poem. There are like many poems with the same title, which is the title of the book, How to Identify Yourself with a Wound. And each of them has like a parenthesis for a different year. It's kind of like me chronicling that year or me chronicling a specific wound. And I like this poem because this is a ode, but also like just chronicling the things that folks would like to think of as wounds. So, how to identify yourself with a wound, 2016. To the black spot on the vein of my left arm for the weekly plasma donations. To the brown scar under my chin from running too fast on a freshly mopped floor. To the altar I called my dorm bed. To Kay, who fought her sanity to sleep next to me. To the poems I've started and stopped for femmes with dyed fades and nails plunged in bubblegum pink. To Dollar Tree nail black polish for, LOL. To Dollar Tree black nail polish for always being there. To the top coat for staining my favorite jacket. To the scars blotched over my legs from scratching mosquito bumps to being a tomboy in elementary and middle school. To the manuscripts I didn't finish. To the fragments that choked them out. To the stretch marks on my stomach and forearms and shoulders. To the animals of past lovers I miss more than the lovers. To D and B and all of the other what ifs minimized to a timeline. To my people that have transitioned to another plane. To you, the witness of what cruelty does to the brain. To T for loving though he didn't know how. To my body for housing a trauma that is timid. To the holes in my jeans. To my wide hips and my lips for always being uncontainable. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Cathy. That was very, very important poem there. And like many of the poems in here, ire'ne Lara de Silva is not with us today because it's her birthday. And she had some plans already made. She said she would be stopping by. She maybe got a chance, but not to look for her. But she did an amazing job on picking these two chapbooks from I think we had 187 entries, and there weren't any bad ones, you know, but there was obviously some incredible ones. So I have some questions, and I would like anybody else that has questions. We'll get to that here in a little bit. But the poems in these two works share a commonality that's prevalent in most good contemporary poetry and our other art, that it challenges the observer and takes them beyond the comfort zone. Assuming that was intentional, I mean, how important was it that you crafted these, and did you feel that there were any limitations or boundaries that you didn't intend to cross? And where did you find yourself up against these limitations? And KB, we'll just start with you because I know yours is deals with boundaries a lot.
Yeah, so my answer to that would be like, I just live a life where everything I do is taboo, just because I'm Black and queer and trans and disabled in Texas, right? Like no one ever wants you to talk about any of those identities, and I have all of them all at the same time. So anything I write that is like me actually talking about my experience is going to make people that don't have those identities uncomfortable. And I can't do nothing about that. Honestly, like I just can't do anything about it. Either I muddle down the truth and make it palpable for people that I don't even really consider my target audience, you know, no offense. Like I want everybody to read my words, obviously, but like I feel like my driving force is really writing things for people like me that live this kind of taboo life, just like based on who they are. And like, you know, that could be Black folks, queer folks, trans folks, disabled folks, like anybody, working class. Like I talk about class also in the book quite a bit. It's just like, I think that the history books already do the modeling for us. Like I'm not gonna do that in my own work. And I think that, you know, with respect to like my personal experiences, and also like with respect to like something that isn't like me talking about trauma just to talk about trauma, like everything is very intentional that I do. And yeah, it's just so like people can come across library books and things in ways that I didn't really, and see their experiences like recorded. Yeah.
Well, I know you've opened my eyes to a lot of things that I was unaware of, and I appreciate that, and I hope that this book does that for a lot of other people. Even if they don't know you, at least they can know you through your work, through your art. Renee, I know that you've made some major changes in your life, and to get into the poetry vein and learn. And you take a softer but very deep approach to the boundaries. So how does that work for you?
So negotiating boundaries. First, I want to say I just really enjoyed your reading, KB, and how you read too, not just content, but what a fine reader you are. So as far as boundaries, I've always been one to kind of brush up against boundaries. When I first, years ago, when I was first deciding to become a surgeon, I was told by every man that I talked to that I couldn't do it. And, and that I wouldn't be able to handle it. And so, I'm used to boundaries. And I grew up in the city of Detroit, spent my time, I'll read a poem later from there, but I also learned a lot about boundaries there. So I think I've always been pushing limits a little bit, pushing boundaries. And one of the questions you ask is, and this kind of rolls off of what KB was saying about exposing something. We don't want to, there's that old song, and I can't remember which blues singer sang it, but everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. And our culture really doesn't want to look at death and mortality and the transience of life. And so I also want to bring that to the front and celebrate the fact that we're transient beings and we're kind of all in that together. So that's one of the things. And then I also bring medical terminology, partly because some of the words are so beautiful that I think they belong in poetry, and that we shouldn't shy from them, even if we don't understand what some of them mean. So I hope that answers a bit of your question.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. I know we're trying to get this wrapped up. I would like to do this for a couple of hours if we have the opportunity to. Well, we'll continue at another time. But right now, before we have any more questions, why don't you each read another poem? And KB, we'll start with you this time.
All right, cool. Sorry for the silence. I'm just choosing between two. Well, okay, I like this poem by me, so I will read it. It's called How to Identify Yourself with a Wound, snapshot for 2018. I am a woman only under certain conditions. When needing a hand moving furniture. On ladies' night at the poorly lit bar when the bouncer touches my lower back. He says, "Right this way, ma'am." And I swallow a cringe along with the complimentary whiskey and Coke. When my chest protrudes through my mostly stretched binder, when a man decides to grab my friend, I step in and say, "Back up." The laugh he bellies reminds me I was a woman then. When the bass in my voice is reduced to a crack, a chest, some child-bearing hips. When Beyonce says ladies and me, myself, and I. The last sip before we leave tells me maybe I can deal with being every kind of woman. Who am I kidding? I've only ever been a question. Laugh? Wound? Sure. I am mistaken for a woman only under certain conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Renee, give us one.
So I'm going to read from a poem called From Motor City Mulch. So mulch is an M-U-L-C-H. And this is an origin poem. If you take I-75 north from Toledo, you can smell Detroit's aroma. rendered fat next to funeral pyres of slag and smokestacks sprouting from Motor City mulch. When asked what suburb I come from, I say Detroit, where children play in oil slicks like little bruises in the shadows. Where else could you live as a troll along a Rouge River? The gift that place gave me in never having to grieve leaving it, a place where I once stood waiting for a lift after my car battery was stolen and pimps lined up for me. I learned to water ski on the Detroit River and still am picking amoebas for my ear canals. Something in the water there killed humans and alewives, our side of the Ambassador Bridge. My father, the lieutenant, said bodies would float because of the gases. They were never Canadians. Riparian rights separated us from a country where they didn't hunt humans. On clear nights, the Big Dipper ladled goodness over there and only badness on our side. On I-94, a huge billboard loomed with a Marlboro man trying to ride his horse out of Detroit. That's when I knew the auto industry was in for it, though. My old boyfriend played Russian roulette badly, racing onto Woodward in his Ford Fairlane, past 8 Mile where the drunks routinely rammed cars into foam poles. In our closet at home hid the '67 riot gear, helmet, and billy club we were never supposed to touch. Switchblades my father confiscated. We devised stories about children who flipped them open in the air, catching them closed without a nick. My old house is officially in the ghetto, and this reminds me of the Buddha, who says we are all part of the present and the past. I know. I carry the ghetto in me. But the Henry Ford Museum got Lincoln's chair, the one Booth shot him in, next to pieces of the first factory lines. I always thought this was a coup for Detroit, where you sit down on the job, you lose. Henry Ford was our man, though. They named half of Detroit after him, including the hospital, where I learned to put breathing tubes in the ones who didn't make it. The ones still warm and pliable, the ones who jumped off overpasses, those finished off by rival gangs. My teacher said it was for practice. Outside the hospital, I saw rats large enough to lift manhole covers. We all have to come from somewhere.
That is an incredible origin story, but you made it. Okay. I noticed both these collections, particularly Renee, motherhood was a driving force in yours, central theme, but it's real broadly interpreted. In KB's work, there are several references, particularly in the Two Truths and a Lie, which he recently read, and you'll never know what your mother went through. I know family's important to everyone, but what possessed you to use these mother references? KB, can you tell what encouraged you to take this direction? Was it family, society, identity, or what made it work for you?
Well, though I don't think I'm the speaker in this collection necessarily, it is like based on, real life instances. And with my idea of mothering, like when homophobes specifically and transphobes would like talk to me about my own intentions to transition and things like that, the one thing that they would always cite is like, oh, but you're giving up motherhood. And I'm like, oh, but that's ignorant because trans people can still have kids. I mean, unless I get a hysterectomy, I still have all the organs. And also like, there are so many ways to have kids. So I was interested in that as an idea. I was like, oh, okay, I'm giving up motherhood, I guess, quote unquote. And I was kind of like writing that poem with that idea in mind. And then with this other poem, because of these other things that folks would like to categorize as wounds, right? Like queerness and transness, that definitely created some just like turmoil in family structures, and also thinking about my own personal origin story and writing about that. it definitely starts with motherhood, right? Like for lots of folks, not all folks, the mother is like the person that the parent that they are so tethered to, right? And that might be like a bodily thing, that might be an emotional thing. And I don't know, I just like wanted to write about that, and wanted to write about like, my own processing and thoughts around family. So yeah.
Great, thank you. Renee, your work takes mother theme all the way back to its organic roots, much as so much revolves around the earth mother as Gaia, but you refer to the social and familial definitions of motherhood. And do you see these as similar forces, or if not, what's the relationship and your feelings about their intersection?
Well, I strongly see the forces of motherhood as being all encompassing. I just remember when I first saw Black Madonnas in Europe and how that, and how mythologies are co-opted, but there's always mothers going all the way back. Even the Etruscan statues, the little mini mother statues from matriarchal cultures in pre-Roman, times, and that, have been co-opted into myths. But nothing really gets around motherhood, the beauty, the trauma, the joy, the mess, all of it. And it's connected to all species, just about. So what I wanted to do was look at motherhood kind of from the ground up. And our present day mythology, I don't think has a lot of space for that. So I found it in sculpture, and some of these I haven't read, but for instance, the sculpture, The Tower of Mothers by Cathy Colwitz, who was a World War I, and World War I lost her son. And so pre-World War II, as part of the resistance in Germany, she made a sculpture, The Tower of Mothers, to protect sons. And then even in female patients I've seen and treated, one is in the book, Veda. It was a patient who was assigned a Greek letter for a name because she came in without any identifying data. And I think, all of these, well, and also just in another poem about mothers, about imperial China and the custom of foot binding, right? And how I compared that with some of what happened to post-World War II American mothers in this country. So I think these relationships, I was just looking at them from all different angles. There's more in the book, but trying to not just narrow it down to this way we look at motherhood sometimes right now, to look at it in a more encompassing view, and kind of like what KB was saying, being able to encompass much more in that way of writing and of seeing and exposing that. So.
Thank you. That's I really want to hear some more poetry. So, I mean, I have more questions, but we don't want to take all our time up on questions, although the answers y'all have given have given me a lot more insight into the work and the new ways of looking at it. And I appreciate that. So I'm going to be following your I guess the both of you have some more events coming up, so I'll be watching. I mean, I'm not going to host anymore because I'm really not good at this. But I'll let somebody else do it, and I'll listen. But why don't you each do another like 5 to 7 minutes, and then I do have one more question I want to ask before we wrap it up. But tell you what, KB, you get going, and then we'll let Renee go, and then we'll wrap up the whole thing.
KB, I think you're muted.
So, but I was saying, all right, I want to read this poem called Transplant. It is about, no, because it's not PG, or even PG-13, I guess. So I'm gonna read this other poem instead. called How to Identify Yourself with the One 2012. Y'all are just getting all of the snapshot poems today. If you've liked like 2 out of 4 poems that I've read, you like enough to buy the book. So definitely like check out Kallisto Gaia Press. If y'all haven't already, my book and Renee's book is on the website. But all right, 2012. This was the day everyone found out I can't fight. Her friend yelled, "World star," and a punch flew across my face like an inchworm, mistaking my freckled skin for trees. I did my 1s and 2s, but the camera made it look like slaps and hair pulling. What can I say? I grew up in an age where 6 seconds can make you famous. I remember thinking, Miss Shove, why are we throwing bows again? Is it the last time she called me a slur, or the time I got in school suspension because she wanted to be a snitch and show who's cool in this equation to her friends? Or is it life that's got us tussling outside a playground in dim lighting at 7 a.m., too close to under-resourced streetlights and dreams deferred? I saw her biting into my arm, wishing that justice would come spilling out. Thank you. Cool. I should have planned this a little better, but I'm gonna read like one more poem. All right, cool. So this one is How to Identify Yourself with a Wound, snapshot 2020. The virus came and everything was already lonely. I became accustomed to yearning and receiving isolation in return. I remember mistaking shoulder touches for I love you and tongues triggered forever in my brain. Yet another not to loosen love phase as the prayer plant opens in the morning. It's hard living touch to touch. Fragments of consciousness, only to be reminded of shame every time a shirt or chest squeeze or body was too close. And then there was you. Fighting local grocers and restroom signs for me, filling places in my body I didn't know knew empty, showing me that love is nothing to be afraid of, that I am nothing to be afraid of. For the first 4 weeks, I was afraid of hurting you. Now I'm afraid of never being able to hurt for you again. You make me believe in touching someone without using hands. Peeling back our intricacies has been my only consensual labor. I am nourished with fruits and FaceTimes, all that's needed in the pyramid of our love. Soon my chest will finish growing skin that only you and surgeons have touched. Even when the world ends in greed and misfortune, at least we will have treasured this exclusivity. Thank y'all. And shout out to my partner, Gabby. I don't write love poems, but I'll write them for you.
That was a beautiful poem. I like that. This book, I wish I could show it to you, but you've seen the cover. It's an amazing cover. And there it is. It's incredible. It's available at Malvern and just about anywhere else. Anybody that has books can get this book right now. So we appreciate it. And we'll be right back with you. I'm going to ask Renee to do a couple of poems now, and then I have one important question to ask of you before we wrap it up.
Okay. The next poem I'm going to read is Tangerines. After the snow settles, the new father has an exotic job, growing tangerines in a valley where you see snow-capped mountains, but the climate is temperate and the mother is never sick, and paints clouds the mother who wants to find a new world in her own personal snow globe. But her father enrolls her in secretarial school, so she leaves home to have a baby. We're all inside that snow globe. Father, mother, swinging crib, house with pine tree and unattached garage, and memory of which there is none until preschool when you fall off a piano bench and hit your head and the world grows sparkly and crystalline. Or at age 4 when Kennedy's death plays over and over on TV and all the ladies cry and wear those hats. Your mother never wore one of those hats. You were born under a dark moon. So inside the glass globe, it's dark memories appearing first. Snow globes came about as an accident. When a scientist tried to create a brighter light bulb, took semolina, poured it into a glass globe. The effect reminded him of snowfall. But artificial snow, being enchanted, is a company secret. And when children show up at the snow globe factory, their eyes must be wide open. They must be mesmerized as they start shaking the globes all at once. And the snow, depending on the phase of the moon, falls everywhere, everywhere, but never melts and never sticks. And then I'm going to read one more, last poem, and it's the poem from which the title of the book is derived, Motherboard. And here's the title, here's the book. And I have an epigraph that is my own epigraph. So I'm using my own epigraph for my own poem, Motherboard, that we might walk into the woods with our kind, wearing dinosaur hats, lift a few stones and tufts of lichens, that we might find the rhizomic mat that connects us to one another. My son used to eat sand in the sandbox when he was little. Many photos of him smiling with sand around his lips and teeth, a little beach growing inside him, human sandpaper. We planted wildflowers and learned the difference between flame, acanthus, and passion vine. And he'd toddle out naked and slip wildflowers with his plastic scissors, or fill my camera with photos he'd taken of the dog's eyes or anus up close. A whole roll of film spent photographing a pill bug rolling around after he lifted a stone and said, "There, I saved that one." And I would let him do this, of course, because I knew that one day I'd regret it if I hadn't. We'd pretend we had a farm or a forest out back. He wanted to have a miniature pig in that yard. He would put his pants on backward for preschool, and I couldn't bear to ask him to change those around. Different colored socks, and he would call all kids young Mikes. Big trees and shafts of sunlight. For the little birds that would slam into our picture window in spring, we made pictures and signs telling them to turn around and go back into the woods. When the computer died, he took it apart, found the motherboard, glued baubles and gems on it, and gave it to me for Mother's Day. Thank you.
That's wonderful. That is just wonderful. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank both of you so much, and I have really enjoyed working with both of you, and it's been entertaining and enlightening for me. And the rest of the Kallisto Gaia team is really behind these books, and it looks like they're both doing pretty well. So they're available everywhere. So I know this isn't going to be the last thing either one of you do. So why don't you start, Renee, and let us know what's your next poetic adventure.
Okay, me and myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm working on now is looking, kind of doing some ekphrastic poems and image narratives, so a little bit different. I don't really write with themes. I just, I write when the spirit moves me. So, but kind of working in some different forms. So I'm kind of seeing where that takes me. So.
Perfect. That's so it's an adventure for you then.
Yeah, it's totally an adventure. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, KB, I already know one thing that you've got going on that's pretty exciting. Why don't you tell us about that, and then what else you have happening?
Yeah, sure. Next steps for me is right now I'm a Broadway Advocacy Coalition fellow, so I'm working on a video poem on policing in schools. So that'll be out around May. And also I have a full-length poetry collection coming out with Deep Vellum Publishing in spring 2023 called Freedom House. Hence, like probably every poem that's gotten published by me in the last like 6 months is in that collection. So if you like any of those, you will like that collection. Also working on allegedly a book of prose. Still trying to figure out what prose is really, but hoping that is like done soonish. And working on a novel in verse, but you will not read either of those things until like 2+ years from now. But yeah, thank y'all.
Isn't it interesting how time seems to slow down when you're doing something like that, when you've got a project going? Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out and experiencing this with us. Pick up these books at any bookstore, preferably Malvern, since Malvern has been kind enough to host this. And we're going to wrap it up now, and thank everybody for showing up. Y'all are great.
Thank you very much. This video will be posted on the Malvern Books YouTube website if you'd like to share that or watch that later. Thank you all very much. It was